and it's not a left-handed quarterback. Is there a reason they do that?
No idea. I mean,
Okay.
they're a running football team, so whether they put him there specifically for the protections, I don't know that that's their number one thing. Mostly they're a 7-man protection, a lot more this year. So, but they're very good up front, and the Feeney guys, the All-American guard, who's been out the last couple of weeks. So we expect that he'll be back to play though.
You're giving up 9 points a game. You've seen great defenses here a while.
Mm-hmm.
You compare them. Is this going to be the best ever?
Well, let's hope. I mean, that's the objective, and that's what we challenge our guys every single day for. Is hey, there's an incredible standard set here, and too much is given, much is expected. So in order to call themselves the Silver Bullets, they know that there's an expectation, and we talk about objectives all the time, and objectives are things we measure every single day, every week, and we try to leave the goals and the big long-term things to the end of the year. So we know we're on the right path. We know we got to continue to improve. But we like where we are right now.
What's the quickest development of what component in those 4 games? I mean, you see guys like Landers stepping up.
Well, I think that the depth is a big issue, and those are the things that you're starting to see. Going in, we knew we had some corners that could cover,
right.
and but sometimes that's one of those things where we got guys that can cover, and all of a sudden, guess what happens during the season? They don't cover as well. So we knew that going in, but to give them guys a lot of credit, we expected that, and they've done a great job so far and continue to do it. So there's a lot of development going on. I think that's the beauty of it. Young guys are becoming a little bit more mature, becoming more comfortable in the things that they're doing in front of 108, 110,000 people, and that's what we got to continue to do.
Indiana, I think they've played you as tough as Michigan over the last 4 years. I think the 4 points is the difference between the two.
And we came down to the last play of the game last year. 2 years ago, obviously it was a heck of a football game out here. Some huge plays. They ran the football on us really well. Again, they have played us as good as anybody in the conference. Maybe Michigan State and the team up north would be the other two. But the reality is they got a heck of a football team. They got a good scheme. They know how to attack you. They're going to run the football. And they're a physical group, and I think that's the thing that you can ultimately look at and say the best offensive line, or one of the best offensive lines we played all last year, was Indiana. And that's a compliment not just to the offensive line, but to the culture and the program they have.
He's built a program.
He has.
A lot of people thought he's just an offensive guru, whatever.
No, there's a philosophy definitely behind it, and you can see it. When you can turn on the film and know exactly who they are and what they do and what they pride themselves on, they've got the makings of a program.
You lose a guy like Darren Lee, first-round draft pick after just 3 years here, just 2 years playing here. Don't miss a beat, it doesn't look like, with Chris Worley. I know you guys have always talked up Chris Worley when we got a chance to talk to you, so you're probably not surprised, but Chris Worley seems like he's playing at a high level, Luke.
He is. I think that the thing about this team is there's more guys that are like Chris Worley than people realize, because some guys don't have big names yet, or some even those names, they might not be Joey Bosa even in the next couple of years, but guys that have grinded and fought and really worked to get where they are is really what makes your program. And not just makes your program, it makes your team. You can put out some great talent out there, but when you got guys that have kind of been through the battles and scars and things haven't been handed to them and haven't happened as easy or as quick as it has for others, like a Darren Lee, those are the guys that really talked about and are the image of your culture. And I think Chris Worley is a great example of that.
You guys are ranked 3rd in the country in total defense. It's hard to find a concern or a weakness on this defense. What's maybe your concern right now? Is there anything you're concerned about regarding your defense?
The concern is us handling some praise, just like a lot of years. That ultimately we talk about it every week, and we'll say it every week, that you got to play your best ball at the end of the year. And how do you do that? You continue to get better. You don't buy all the stuff that people are selling right now that, hey, you guys are here or you're there. The reality is it's a journey, and we got to play our best ball at the end of the year. And how do we do that? Consistency, continue to get better. Don't let the human element things creep into what it is that we do.
There were a bunch of times that we would talk to Kerry and he'd say, we've got to hold our breath with Marshawn. We just got to keep him healthy. Are there still times when the defensive staff is looking at Marshawn that way and doing things to keep him healthy? Or are you guys past that, you think?
No, I don't think it ever goes. As coach will tell you, is once you pull a hamstring, you're on the list to be a hamstring guy the entire career here. So there's things that we do every single day, but I got to give credit to Coach Combs. There's times when we get a little upset. I'll look out there and like, well, why is so-and-so in there with the ones? And the reality is he knows his players. He knows what they need. He knows how to keep them healthy, and he knows how to get into the game. And ultimately, that's that's how we're going to be successful.
There are still signs that this is, kind of a young, growing team with, the occasional slow start in the first quarter or the penalties. But what is it about this team that allows them to shake that off and overcome that and just beat the teams the way they have this year? I mean, 58 zeros.
I think the key word is team, is that you don't panic. And some people would say, well, yeah, we always say team. No, the reality is you rely on one another. And whether the offense has a slow start or the special teams has a slow start or the defense has a slow start, the reality is you got confidence in one another because it's a team. And I think that's the way it's been built. I'm not saying it was always that way. Sometimes, when someone's offense is rolling a few years ago and, maybe we're struggling a bit at times, it maybe didn't feel like that all the time. But the reality is we've had our ups, everybody's had their ups, everybody's had their downs. And I think ultimately through what we've done here and what we've built here and the culture that coaches really designed and bred, that it's a team. And no matter what the situation is, if someone's slow or someone struggles, we still rely on one another and we feed off of each other. And I think that's the great thing we got going right now.
You guys have 3 kids from one team committed, and it's not a unique thing that teammates come and play at Ohio State if they're good enough, but I was just wondering about Glenville and specifically Marshawn and Chris Worley. They've been best friends since childhood, slept on each other's couches and stuff, and I was just wondering how unique it is for both of them to have had to overcome individual things like Marshawn with his hamstrings and Chris waiting behind Darren Lee to get to this point, and to have a moment before the game to look at each other and see that they're together on the field, and kind of what you might have noticed from their bond.
I mean, we've had quite a few guys from that school. We've had guys that are have had multiple guys from different programs. But the reality is, they have a connection, but that connection has only grown stronger here from everything that we put them through. So I don't know that being from the same hometown, growing up together, that there's a lot of incredible things right there. But the reality is that I think one of the biggest issues is, and we've had it before with Glenville and in general, maybe with 5, 6, 7 guys on the team, their ability to look at their other teammates in a very similar way that might not have grown up with them. I mean, Chris Worley looks at guys like Craig Fada and Joe Berger, who grew up completely different than him, from a completely different school, whether they're from Columbus or Cincinnati or Cleveland or California, and accept them in a very similar way with the love and the respect for one another. I think that's what we got going on here at Special. Obviously, those guys got a little different bond because of where they grew up together. But to see those bonds right there grow over to even the other guys on the team, I think is what really makes this place special.
There's a lot of merit to the argument that the best team you face every week is the one in here or out on that practice field.
There's no doubt of that. I mean, again, each team poses different obstacles, and I think that's the beautiful thing about going out there each and every week to play. But there's no doubt that, we say it every Tuesday, every Wednesday when we're, even on Sunday nights when, hey, here we go, we're going out to play against our offense, whether it's 7-on-7, you're going to see nothing better than you're going to see right here every single week. At some point in time, we're going to see guys maybe as good, but the reality is the things that we see on an everyday basis is what really makes us great and prepares us for those Saturday afternoons.
Mike Hill seems to be doing a really good job inside. He might not be a guy that's going to put up stats. He's taking on double teams, but he seems to be clogging up the middle. I mean, you can relate to a nose guard and they're doing the dirty work. Just what are you seeing out of Mike Hill? What kind of level is he playing at?
I think sometimes it's like your own kid at times. You're so close to it that you might not see the growth as often as others do. And it kind of hit me. I know he's been playing better. I know he's been doing a great job. I got obviously a little bond or special respect for those guys that do what they do in there. But it was nice last week talking with Matt Millen, before the game, and him saying that he thought one of the most improved guys on the team was 77, and it was Michael Hill. And that's when you kind of, as a coach, you step back and you take for granted some of the things that are going on, the developments that's going on, because you're there every single day. I have noticed it. I haven't noticed it as much as someone from the outside to see how he plays better with his hands. He plays with a better base. He plays with better power. All the things that he had, but yet are translating onto the field on Saturdays for others people to recognize. It's a credit not just to him, to Coach Johnson, but to the entire program.
Yeah, and he barely played as a redshirt freshman 2 years ago on the national championship team. I mean, you guys went with Adolphus and Mike Bennett almost all the time at defensive tackle. I mean, how far has Mike come in 2 years?
And to be honest with you, last year, Tommy shut it. Would he have played as much if Tommy hadn't been hurt? But you know what? It's a credit to Mike. Mike's won through a lot. There's a lot of guys in this program that things haven't been handed to, and Mike's one of those guys that's had to battle and fight and go through a lot of adversity, and maybe not adversity that the public knows, but from real hard scrutiny from his coaches and from his teammates. And you know what? That's what ultimately makes you great, makes you better when you can handle those things. And Mike has done an unbelievable job, and I'm just glad he's starting to get a little bit of recognition. Maybe not the stats, but the people from the outside are realizing really what he does for our program and what he does for our defense in general.
Did you mention that kind of stuff just to help a kid? You mentioned that, hey, Matt, no, you know.
Yeah, we do, and the head coach does a great job at mentioning it too. And I think that's one of those things we're always, Coach talked about, always looking for small victories, trying to find ways. We have a philosophy defensively. I know we're tough and hard on people, but we want to lift up, pick up, build up young men. And sometimes when you hear those compliments from the outside that you can repeat them, those are little victories that continues to build a guy's confidence. And ultimately in this game, if you don't have great confidence in what it is that you're doing, at some point in time you're going to struggle.
That's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt. You need to trademark. Say that again.
Lift up, pick up, build up. That's what we try to do. It might not seem like that sometimes.
Luke, you're 4 games in. Raekwon was obviously the guy preseason, All-American captain. He's kind of been quiet. You don't hear a lot about him in games, and he's not sort of making the big plays Jerome's making and that sort of stuff. Is he having the type of season you thought he would have, or is it just a byproduct of him playing the position so well that you're not hearing about him?
I think it is. It is. We ask him to do a lot. And if you really look at even the career of James Laurinaitis, his senior year, he might not have got as much recognition. And I'm not saying Raekwon's a senior, but the reality is sometimes as they get older, they're so much better. You know, there's some young guys that don't have the names and maybe make some splash plays. But the reality is he's playing at a very high level. He allows us to do a lot of things. He allows us to be simple in what we do and allow him to make checks and things off of formations that people outside wouldn't have any idea of. But,
how has he helped Jerome and Chris step into the roles that they're in, and even Dante?
And I think ultimately you got to have a guy that's a leader and a guy that builds the confidence of everybody around him. We have a definition for leadership, and at least in the linebacker room for sure. Leaders make others around them better. From everything they do, from how they act, how they work, how they hold themselves. There's no greater example to making others around him better is Raekwon McMillan. He's a humble guy. He works at it. He's an example every single day. And he's playing at a high level. Like I said, there's not as many splash plays. You might not hear about some of the plays of the corner because why? Well, they cover guys, and they don't throw it at them. Sean Springs here was Defensive Player of the Year in 1996. In the Big Ten. He had 0 picks. How does a guy with 0 picks become Player of the Year in the Big Ten? Well, because people respected him that much, they didn't throw at him, and we know what the value that is to our defense.
Luke, how does Robert Landers compare now to when he stepped on campus a couple years ago?
I mean, we thought Robert was always going to have the ability to be a little bit of a change-up guy, but you've seen a growth maturity-wise and on and off the field. You know he's a guy that coming in is not a huge guy, so by nature he has a lot of power, and for him to have the ability to get out there and show what he can do, he's got some abilities. He really does, and he provides a little something different for us than maybe Mike Hill. Not that one is that much better than the other. The reality is that when you've got 2 guys and when they are change of pace guys, they're different in what they allow themselves to do. Can add some true value to our defense.
When Dante Booker gets
recruitment, Wayne High School has produced a few
very different. Very different. It was not a guy that was high on the radar. He was one of those guys that on a Friday afternoon, he's a great story of that being said. He went through the playoffs 4 weeks in a row, and every head coach that he played called after the game. Specifically, a couple of them called me. He beat Dublin Kaufman, and Crabtree calls me after the game and says, "You guys got to look at this kid." And then they beat Moeller, and the Moeller coach calls and said, "I don't know what you guys do, but you better look at this kid." Then they get beat in the state finals by Lakewood St. Edwards, and the coach called after that and said he took away 3/4 of our run game, so you better look at this kid. And it's amazing how that happens on a Friday afternoon. I ended up going to Dayton Wayne High School to go meet with the kid, and Friday night he was here on official visit. So everybody's got a little different journey. His is a unique one at that.
When Dante Booker returns healthy, with as well as Jerome Baker has played, good problem to have? Just how would you describe that situation?
Great problem to have. Yeah. And amongst a unit where guys love and care about one another, that know that he's only going to provide more for us, and it's going to give us the ability to have some versatility and to roll some guys that we haven't had a whole bunch this year. We had it with Raekwon and Curtis Grant. And to have the ability to be able to do that, and I mean, heck, even move Jerome, let him play 2 positions. So those things are all in the works. That's what we got to make sure we can get ourselves back to. That kind of competition, that kind of depth provides a lot for us.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.